All right, so this is a first news story of the day is going to be for Black Adam. So Black Adam, I have this article here via Variety. I'm going to read another article that got tweeted out by The Rock that was from Deadline. But this article from Variety talks about box office bust. Black Adam faces theatrical losses. Did you see Black Adam there, Chris?
Yes, I did. I saw it finally about a week and a half ago.
Yeah. What were some of your thoughts on it?
It's kind of terrible. It's a very generic movie. Once again, it's another movie with The Rock that he picks one of his yes man to do. That's basically just the camera fawning over him and how awesome and badass and how many guys he can take down over the course of a single movie. And I'm just kind of tired of that shtick. And yeah, like, the special effects are passable most of the time. Other times, they're just straight up terrible. There's one set piece that I think is actually pretty creative involving Pierce Brosnan's character, Dr. Fate. And I think Pierce does a really good job throughout the movie. And even though I hated all of his dialogue, I thought Aldous Hodge as Hawkman did a pretty good job. Like, I wish he would get better material as that character, because he does have a cool power set. But yeah, it's one of the weakest of this current crop of DC EU movies for me. Like, down there with the original Suicide Squad and the theatrical cut of Justice League. I'd say this is like right below something like Batman v Superman, because as bad as Batman v Superman was, it at least felt like it was by a filmmaker who had a story that they really wanted to tell and something they wanted to say. Like, this, particularly with all the slow-mo, which just looks really weirdly cheap a lot of the times considering the budget. It feels like it was done by like a C-level Zack Snyder clone, which is saying something, because even the A-list Zack Snyder is always wanted. So yeah, I was not a fan at all.
Yeah, I mean, we reviewed it. It's up on the page, youtube.com, the afternoon 2. You can check out our review there. Also, wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you can listen to our review there. I wasn't very big on the movie myself. Me or Nick very much were not. I thought it was kind of like, it was kind of just, felt like, we talk about superhero fatigue, you know what I mean? I think this movie perfectly kind of fit that description of, like, it's kind of got all these different elements from all these other superhero movies and kind of putting it together. Yeah. And then nothing really kind of doesn't really feel that good about it. I did like the Justice Society here that you have, where you have like Dr. Fate and Hawkman and then Cyclone and Atom Smasher. Even when I saw the trailer, I was like, I bet you this is going to be my favorite part of the movie. And then when they showed up, they were. I liked Dr. Fate, Pierce Brosnan. I think he did a good job. To see a big budget live action Dr. Fate, because we've seen Dr. Fate on TV before, but to see him actually on the big screen was really good to see. And Aldous Hodge, who, speaking of, kind of like actors who are kind of making a come up, like Jonathan Majors with in Devotion, Aldous Hodge, I'm good to see him. I want to see more of him. I liked him when he was on Leverage. He was in that movie, The Invisible Man. So, I want to see more opportunities for him. I think he's a good actor, and he's got a lot of charisma and charm. And I want to, really want to see him do some more stuff here. Yeah, so, yeah, I think it was kind of just underwhelming, a lot of that. So, this article here for Variety talks about, so Black Adam, a comic book adventure starring Dwayne Johnson as a villain who brings promise to change the hierarchy of power in the Warner Brothers DC universe, didn't come cheap, costing $195 million to produce, and a big budget led by Johnson, one of the biggest movie stars in the world, who plays against type here as a murderous anti-hero, which really he's not that much of a anti-hero, really, and Black Adam, really. I mean, he's kind of just more of a straight hero. Requires a worldwide marketing spend of $100 million, according to knowledgeable individuals inside Warner Brothers. Pushback say that COVID-related box office limitations led the studio to scale back the global advertising campaign to $80 million. As a result, the film needed to earn around $600 million worldwide to break even and to surpass that lofty benchmark to turn a profit, according to sources familiar with the financials. Yet, box office experts believe Black Adam will stall out in less than $400 million globally, which is problematic since the movie theater owners get to keep around half of those sales. Now the movie stands to lose 50 million to 100 million and its theatrical run, according to estimate of insiders as well as rival executives with knowledge of similar productions. Sources at Warner Bros. Dispute those numbers, saying the movie will break even at 400 million. When the film was commissioned, the break even was believed to be 450 million, but that figure has dropped given the particulars of the new home entertainment landscape, one in which Black Adam has overperformed projections. They also argue that these revenue streams have grown more profitable with shorter theatrical windows. Thanks to pandemic-era concessions, films hit home entertainment platforms in 33 days rather than 75, which reduces the money needed to revive marketing campaigns for a digital launch. With Alcor reviews, revenues, sources at Warner Bros. Said the film is poised to get back into the black. Yeah. So now I'm gonna talk about, this was an article that Dwayne Johnson he tweeted out from Deadline, talking about, no, the movie did make a profit, and here's how. So this was a Deadline report here. There's some stalking going on out there that Black Adam's poised to lose $50 to $100 million. This is simply just not true. Deadline film finance sources, meaning people who did this for a living, and those close to films, saying that this movie is bound to break even and be in the black. So I'm going to kind of scroll down and talk about a little bit more. So what do you think about this news here of the back and forth between Black Adam doing well and not doing well? You know, were you expecting the movie to do a lot more than what it has right now? Because I'm going to pull up the box office for what it has right now, because it's on digital right now, but it's still on in theaters. Were you expecting a bigger return for Black Adam?
Yes and no. It's one of those things where I was expecting it to be a bigger hit because it does have such big ties to the bigger DC universe, particularly Shazam. Like, in the comics, Black Adam is known as one of Shazam's, like, biggest enemies, and you'd think they would play that up more in the movie and in the marketing, but they really didn't. I feel like that kind of served to help kick the legs out from underneath it. Like, if they had played up more that it was connected to a DC movie, particularly one that people really liked as much as people like Shazam, then I think it would have helped its box office. But instead, they waited until the last week to spoil. Who I was gonna say spoiler alert, but who gives a fuck? The Superman cameo at the end of the movie. They wait until the last week to just kind of spoil that and hey, he's gonna meet Superman at the end, and then they might do a sequel where they fight. Huh? And so yeah, I think that was kind of an ass backwards way of trying to promote it. But yeah, at the same time, The Rock, he is a big name, and people do go see movies because of him, because he's in them. But I don't think he brings as many people in as he probably needs to in order for this movie to be considered a big hit. Because obviously he's had, big franchise movies where he's helped out. He helped Fast and Furious get to where it is now, where each movie makes $1 billion or close to $1 billion. And the Jumanji movies, which are big hits whenever they get released on Christmas, and everybody's too busy going to see whichever Star Wars movie is released at the time. It's all right, we can't get in there, let's go see Jumanji instead. And it's good counter program. And he's definitely had hits by himself, like San Andreas was huge. And fuck, I'm trying to think of another one that's I'm struggling. Did Rampage do well? I want to say that did okay.
Yeah, I think it. I mean, it didn't. I don't think it did super well, but it made its money. It made its money, man.
Right, and then there's other stuff I think Skyscraper was one that underperformed, and Baywatch definitely underperformed. He went on a whole Twitter rant against critics, you killed our movie, fuck you. Da, 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 da. No, the movie killed itself in that instance. So yeah, he does definitely have an audience, but I don't think it's a big enough audience to where they could have helped this movie with the budget it has, including the marketing and the effects and the fact that, it's another movie that kept getting, it's gotten delayed a bunch of times, partially due to COVID. And it's one of those things where when you push a movie back, it costs more money because then you have to restructure your marketing to a certain extent, and that adds to the budget. And I also read that this movie had to chop itself down a little bit because it got an R rating at one point because of some of the violence, and they had to chop it to get a PG-13. And resubmitting your movie to the MPAA to get rated also costs more money. So yeah, this movie, it had a lot stacked against it, but I don't think it had what it needed in order to make its money back. If that first report is to believe, like good word of mouth and like a truly like unique concept and story. It's just kind of generic, and yeah, it doesn't particularly shock me that it hasn't made a whole lot. But at the same time, it's a superhero movie, and superhero movies are big right now, so that would help. But we mentioned superhero fatigue earlier. I feel like that's also kind of playing a hand in it.
Yeah, and it didn't help that other articles like when Wakanda Forever was coming out, and they go like Wakanda Forever grosses all of the the gross of Black Adam in 1 week, that Black Adam took 3 weeks to do. You know what I mean? Like it did all that in 1 week, because like I think Wakanda Forever had like 330 million its first opening weekend, and everything like that. So it's constantly kind of making comparisons there. Right now, Black Adam is at it just passed 388 million, so it hasn't gone to 400 million yet. And so it needs about like I think 450 million. This Variety article was saying. So the rest of this Deadline article. So it says here. Let's see. Scroll down here. So with Black Adam, it says Black Adam, Reb Johnson's biggest solo opening stateside at 67 million. Clearly one of the financial models that Warner Brothers had in mind when it was strategizing the P&L on this film. In a very dry fall marketplace without any tent poles due to post-production logjam created by COVID. Black Adam was one of the biggest movie of the season, notching number one for 3 weeks in a row, around before Disney/Marvel Studios' Black Panther, Wakanda Forever had arrived, like I just said. I have read the claims that Black Adam will lose money. That is false, exclaimed producer and financier Joe Singer, who deals greatly in motion picture slate financing. The picture may have been considered disappointing since it had Dwayne Johnson in the DC film. However, the picture will pass, break even, and throw off a bit of profit. Was Black Adam as big as Hobbs and Shaw, which yielded as an 84 million profit after all allegories? No, but you need to remember that the Fast and Furious spinoff had Russia and didn't face the headwinds of a strong dollar overseas. Hobbs and Shaw also had the benefits of China, where Johnson is big. Pick making 201. Note that theatrical rental return back to the U.S. is only around 25%, and there's no home market in the PRC. China has sidelined several U.S. blockbuster titles in the wake of COVID. These factors could have been the forecast with Black Adam, but couldn't have been forecast when Black Adam was greenlighted. However, working in Black Adam's favor is a thriftier market budget to Universal's 140 million push of Hobbs and Shaw. How is that? There's been an instant cost crunching going on at Warner Bros. Discovery, which is mirrored in debt and going through rounds of layoffs. Black Adam put the bulk of its spending in digital marketing over linear, teed off by Johnson's massive social media bullhorn, which has a reach of nearly 500 million followers across TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, a factor is shorter theatrical windows movies nowadays, which enables the studio to stretch their marketing dollar. Private video on demand for the film is hitting at the time when the pick is still in theaters and outdoor ads are still around. Black Adam is dropping on HBO Max December 16th after a 57-day window, long enough to maximize theatrical PVOD and sell through dollars. The swing factor and the net profit here in Black Adam, Warner contends that it spent 80 million on global P&A, which could get the pick to 72 million surplus, whereas the 100 million contended by the source lands the pick at a $52 million profit. And yeah, I mean, Dwayne Johnson has been pumping this movie hard to keep. And it also kind of didn't help that, I mean, he was making a big push, like, this is going to be the hierarchy of power is going to change in the DC universe. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was pumping that hard in this, and like, this is going to be a game changer. Like, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be amazing. And it was just okay at best. You know what I mean? And it wasn't really that. And with this Deadline article, like I said, it probably will. I mean, it's at 388 million right now, so it could make up to 400 million plus, which is what this movie needs. So it could get around that territory and be profitable. It won't, be as big of a success as maybe hoped. I mean, because I was thinking, like, because when this movie was starting to come out, I was like, how much money is it gonna make? I'm like, yeah, you have The Rock, you have Dwayne Johnson, who's a big star, and then superhero movies are really in right now. But the DC universe is such a mess, and some of these movies, it's like they pay for, I think, the sins of the other DC movies. Like, I think part of the reason why The Suicide Squad, which is James Gunn, didn't do that well was because of the past Suicide Squad movie was not good. I mean, also because that movie came out kind of during COVID time as well, right? The Suicide.
Yeah, it came out in the heat of when everybody was freaking out about Delta, so that also didn't help.
Yeah, and then it had its simultaneous release too. It was on HBO Max and it was in theaters too, which didn't help. So
that whole HBO Max thing fucked up a lot of movies.
Yeah.
That year.
So that didn't help. And we're gonna go into the big shakeup stuff that's possibly happening in DC later on. Just after this, we're gonna tie this into the whole big shakeup kind of going on there with DC stuff reportedly. So, yeah, I mean, I think some of these movies do pay for the sins of kind of these other things kind of going on. And I don't think, I mean, it had a B+ cinema score, which this article says is pretty good. That's usually, is good enough. I mean, typically, I think with a movie, if you want to have like an A or something above an A cinema score, that typically means that, because most people just give a good review to most movies. Like, most people coming out of a movie would just go like, oh, hey, I saw a movie, whatever. I got out the house, A. You know what I mean? Like, most people ain't thinking about that hard. Some shit blew up. I had fun, whatever, A, Yeah. So I guess, I mean, usually lower than the A is typically not, people aren't feeling that strong on it. Am I right in that assessment?
Yeah, kind of. Cinema score isn't necessarily the place you look at if you want to gauge the actual quality of a movie. It's mostly just like random people went to see it, they were expecting something, did this movie give them what they were expecting or not? Like, a lot of horror movies tend to get Fs because it didn't give them the particularly kind of horror movie that they're used to. Like, I think Hereditary was one that got like an F cinema score because everyone was just like, what the fuck is this? They were expecting, kind of more typical jump scare generic horror, not the weirder art housey horror that movie is, and that happens a lot. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily shock me that it's got like a B+. It's very much like, this is what it is, we're not giving you anything more, and take it or leave it. And a lot of audiences don't want anything more than just that, what that movie gives them, I guess.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it will make a profit. And like I said, it doesn't help that Wakanda Forever, I mean, it's at like, I think, because that movie's 700 million plus right now. So, compared to that, it's like, yeah, it's not doing so well. And I think even Wakanda Forever probably will, I mean, I wasn't expecting it to make $1 billion anyway, because it's not going to release in China, which is also a factor with Black Adam too. Like, it's not going to release in China, which, you can add an extra 100 million to that or something like that. To the movie, which is going to help bolster the box office and everything like that. So that's a factor as well. So I'd say I wouldn't say it's Black Adam is a flop, but it's underperforming. I mean, I think would be a better assessment. And underperforming doesn't always mean that it's a flop per se, because a flop would mean exactly. that the movie did below what it was, below the budget, like making double its budget and everything.
Yeah, like, you want to talk about flops or even bombs. Like, The Lone Ranger is a bomb. Like, Jupiter Ascending is a bomb. Like, this isn't one of those. This is just kind of like, yeah, it's just not hitting what it needs to in order to justify how much they spend on it.
Yeah, it's just a movie that just kind of is underperforming in that sense. So I think they're, so speaking about DC, speaking about Black Adam. Going into a little bit of news just about the kind of the big shakeup that's supposedly happening there with DC stuff. Have you heard about this?
Yes, I have.
So what's kind of going on here? Now, these are rumors. Nothing has been, you know what I mean? I don't think anything has been specifically said by the studio or by Gunn himself, or by the producer, because we talked about like Gunn and a producer is taking over. They're going to be the new heads of the DC films now, the DC kind of productions going on at Warner Brothers. To my knowledge, nothing has been said by them, right?
Gunn put out a tweet saying that some of this is true, a lot of it isn't, and just wait for me and Peter Safran is the producer who's about to run DC with him. Like, just wait for word from them to like, if it comes from them, then it's official. Until then, don't necessarily believe everything that you hear from news outlets.
Okay, so I have an article here from IGN that says Wonder Woman 3 reportedly won't move forward under new DC leadership. It says, according to the Hollywood Reporter, Gunn and Safran recently spent time in deep planning for their DC blueprint and have a work in progress plan they're ready to show Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav for approval. One film that's not included in these plans is Wonder Woman 3. Insiders say that the third Wonder Woman movie from Patty Jenkins with star Gal Gadot is considered dead in its current incarnation. Now, I know a lot of people weren't big fans of Wonder Woman 84. I wasn't a big fan of it either. I thought it was a very disappointing movie. Especially coming off of the heels of the first Wonder Woman movie, which I thought was very good. I thought that was one of the few really good ones that the DC kind of movies have had recently of late. How did you feel about Wonder Woman 84?
That was a weird one because it was one where I watched it with a mutual friend of ours, Chris Herman, on a live stream the day it came out on Christmas Day, I think. And when I saw it, I was like, this is fine, this is okay. Except I had gotten up during one key scene to go to the bathroom, and I didn't pause it, I just let it play. And when it came back, I had missed a few minutes. And then I was talking to a bunch of other people the next day that we know. Rose Maddox, who's been on the show before, was one of them. And they told me about, like, weren't you freaked out by that weird rape scene? And I was like, wait, what? And then they told me, no, like, Steve, his spear possesses another body, and then Wonder Woman has sex with that body. And I was like, well, I know he possesses another body, but what's this about, like, the sex scene? And then I realized, like, oh, shit, I missed, like, the big scene in the movie. And then I went back, I was like, oh, I gotta drop this rating down, like, an entire letter grade. Like, this is... what the fuck were they thinking? Like it boggles my mind that nobody looked at that and said, I don't think this should be here. Like, we should probably cut this out. And, yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, you fucked up so bad with this not just for that, but with other things too. Like, just the tone and the style felt off. It looked really cheap. Like, even though I think it had a bigger budget than the first one, it looked worse. The story was just complete nonsense, and it was one of those things where, when I think about it, it's like, do I really want a third movie? Could they salvage this? And I'm just kind of like, maybe, but maybe not. Like, I don't know. And I wasn't too sad when I found out that 3 was killed in the way it is. And there's even, like, a weird contradiction with that. Like you said, like, yeah, it's dead in its current form, but theirs was a whole, like, other article a couple days ago where it's like, it's not dead because, like, oh, this doesn't fit into anything. It's dead right now because Patty Jenkins quit. Like, they asked her, like, they read the treatment that she wrote with Jeff Johns, the famous comic writer who co-wrote Wonder Woman 1984 with her, and I think had a story credit on Aquaman 2. They turned in their treatment, and the heads of the studio, and I think including Gunn and Safran, said, like, yeah, we might need to change some stuff. Like, can you rework this or come up with a new story or whatever? And she walked off because she was so furious that they would dare ask her to make changes, to the point that she apparently emailed the head of Warner Brothers, or one of the heads, Michael DeLuca, a Wikipedia page explaining what a character arc is, because she felt like they didn't understand what she was trying to do with Wonder Woman's arc. So, yeah, we will still get the movie at some point. The question is whether or not Gal Gadot's gonna want to come back, considering how Jenkins is gone now, and Jenkins, like Jenkins helped make that first movie what it is. Like, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like she had proven herself with the first movie, and it's like, you said that the world wouldn't accept a big budget female-led superhero movie from a female director, and they did. So I know what the fuck I'm doing. Let me do whatever they want. And then they let her do whatever she wanted on the second movie, and it suffered. So yeah, it's a weird thing that's going on at DC right now.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, she did a great job with Wonder Woman 84. I mean, she just directed that movie. She didn't write that movie. And maybe the issue could have been her writing the second one, maybe, because just a lot of stuff just with Wonder Woman 84. Like, I kind of understood a little bit, like, it was kind of, I like the aspect of it. It felt like a Christopher Reeve Superman movie. Like, the kind of the like hopefulness of it and the joy of it, of being like her being a superhero and saving people, like the mall scene. I know maybe some people don't really like that as much, but I like the mall scene and her like just saving people, because yeah, that's what, you know, if you're just doing that type of superhero movie, that's what a superhero movie should really do. But then there was the weird stuff like with the wishes, and like the consistency of that didn't make any sense. Like, people could ask for 2 wishes, but then one person can only ask for 1 wish. And then the whole message of the movie of, you know, it's like you can't cheat your way through life. It's like, okay, but there was a scene in the movie where you saw a kid who's like, his parents were fighting, like his dad was abusing his mom, and maybe wished that wouldn't happen. It's like, is that kid selfish because he doesn't want to, you know, his mom to be abused? Like, the consistency of it just didn't make any sense with that stuff there. And so I thought that was just a mistake. And then, like you said, the whole stuff with Steve Trevor and the him being in another person's body, and that was all weird too. So yeah, I think there was a lot of just bad decisions with that. But I wasn't completely ready to write off Patty Jenkins. I was like, yeah, I mean, she stumbled, but she did a great job with the first one. And I think sometimes with people with these movies, especially when it's these genre films that involve, like, you know, comic books or sci-fi stuff or anything like that, it's like a person could be a darling. You know, they could be, you know, held in high regard. They do a great thing, and all of a sudden, but if they mess up one thing, it's like, you're trash, you're garbage, you never were good. It's like, well, you know, maybe the person just stumbled a little bit and it can kind of bounce back. So I was kind of interested to see maybe what she would do with a third one. I heard some speculation with the third one was like she was going to go to hell, and like Steve Trevor was going to be there too, or something like that. That was, I don't know if you've heard that rumor that was the plot of the third one.
But no, I did not. This is all news to me, what I'm hearing.
Okay, yeah, I think I had heard that she was maybe going to go to hell or something. Chris Pine was going to come back or something like that. And then there's also speculation that this is also from the IGN article. It says the report states that DC's new plan could be to close down the Snyderverse and shut down Man of Steel 2 starring Henry Cavill, as well as the end of the Aquaman series starring Jason Momoa. Both characters are set to cameo in the upcoming Flash movie. Cavill announcing his return to Superman was not premature, as there were serious plans for a sequel and even other Justice League movies starring the Snyderverse actors, but Gunn and Safran's plans could omit them entirely, as well as a Black Adam sequel. So I've heard the rumor that Jason Momoa is not going to be Aquaman, that he's going to be Lobo, which I think he'd make a good Lobo. I think he would. I think he would make a, I think when I saw Aquaman, I was like, yeah, I mean, it seems more like a Lobo. Because Lobo is pretty much like a dude bro type character, from my experience of watching him in something like the Justice League, the animated series. How do you feel about them, about potentially like just saying like maybe scrapping all this stuff, getting rid of all these actors? It's like, you know what? Let's just start from square one again. Let's not continue with Aquaman, which Aquaman, the first one, made $1 billion. The first Wonder Woman was very successful. I mean, it made $700 million, if I'm not mistaken, the first Wonder Woman did. And you had Man of Steel, which was also very successful too. So how do you feel about them just going, let's just go back to square one again?
I think it has its advantages and its disadvantages. Like, yes, DC has kind of screwed up. Like, I'm someone who actually likes Man of Steel. I get why other people don't, but I like that it was an interesting Zack Snyder experiment of like, hey, let's take the Superman character and deconstruct him. Like, let's have it to be where like he starts off like not quite sure of what he wants to do. Like, he wants to help people, but he's not sure how to do it, and he has to like have this inner conflict between the lessons that his two different fathers have given him and find like a good middle ground. And I think that was a good starting off point that just kind of got away from them by the time of Batman v Superman, where I feel like a lot of the big mistakes of the entire universe were made, and that's kind of been coming back to bite them sporadically ever since. So if they want to just start from scratch and just get rid of a lot of the bad stuff, I get that. But at the same time, there is stuff that has worked within this crop. Like we've mentioned, the first Wonder Woman. I am with our mutual friend Nathan Flynn. I adore Aquaman. Like they cannot stop that movie. Those movies, like they need to keep going. Like keep making them as long as you can. The Suicide Squad, Shazam. I still haven't watched Peacemaker, but everything I've heard about that has been like, yeah, this is one of the best things they've done. So, yeah, if they were to start from scratch, we'd be getting rid of a lot of bad shit, but we'd also be losing some really good shit. There is a part of me that wonders if, they're still, apparently they haven't locked the final version of The Flash yet, which has its own set of fucked up shit going on with its star.
Yeah.
But there is part of me that wonders if they are going to use that as their chance to kind of semi-reboot the entire thing and keep the things they like, and get rid of the things they don't like. Like they could do that, but I also wonder if they are just starting from scratch. But even so, if they are starting from scratch, they could still carry some stuff over that's like, okay, this worked. Let's keep going with this, because James Gunn did The Suicide Squad, which is ultimately kind of a sequel, but you could also argue is a reboot, because it does feel so much like its own distinct thing, even though it does carry over several of the actors from the previous Suicide Squad. So it's just so up in the air right now. I do kind of hope they do keep some of the better stuff from what they've been doing, because I feel like DC being so messy, yeah, it's led to some bad stuff, but it's also, I think, made their movies more interesting and exciting in a certain sense and what Marvel's been doing, because Marvel is so rigid and they have such a specific formula and way of doing things that they stick to, and they're pumped out so constantly. It feels like we get a new movie or show or a new trailer for a movie or show for something from Marvel every couple of weeks nowadays, and it gets exhausting and just feels kind of repetitive. Whereas DC, it feels a little more it feels more risky, and it feels more I don't know what I'm gonna get, and I can't wait to find out. So I'm disappointed the chance that could be lost, but at the same time, I do trust James Gunn because he's done so much good stuff in this particular genre. Him and Peter Safran, I feel like they've earned the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like you said, I mean, it's a mixed bag, because like you said, they've had some good stuff, they had some bad stuff. And it's always almost been an interesting direction to see where they go. Like you said, it's not like Marvel, where, like you said, they're so stuck in their formula and gotta follow this line. It's okay, here's, what I mean? They got a lineup of, we're gonna be getting a new Marvel movie for the next 10 years, or what I mean, whole plan, phase 5, 6, 7, 8. And with DC, it's the Joker film. It's that was just kind of random, and that made $1 billion, and that was hugely successful. I'm not a huge fan of the Joker film, but I appreciate them doing something like that. It's hey, let's do this. The Batman, even though it's not such much of a risk, because you're one of your biggest characters ever, the Batman. But I appreciate the aesthetic and look it was doing, and all that stuff associated with it. So I like that. And I was wrong. So Wonder Woman, the box office was $822 million. I was off there. And so they had, the first Wonder Woman. I do like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Do I think Gal Gadot is particularly the best actress? No, not really. I mean, could you maybe do better than her as Wonder Woman? Possibly. I mean, she is the first big screen Wonder Woman that we've ever had. So she kind of has that kind of going for her, is that she is the first big screen one we've ever really had. Then Henry Cavill is Superman. I like him as Superman. I just don't think he's got good material. He hasn't had really good material. Again, you could still, I think, find somebody to play Superman. I don't think that'd be too big of a ask to find maybe another actor to step into the role. As well as I know Ben Affleck is Batman right now. We have actors who are 3 actors who are playing Batman, I guess, currently, because you have Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, and Robert Pattinson right now. So you have 3 actors who are playing Batman, I guess, for DC right now. So, you know, and Jason Momoa, I'm not a fan of the Aquaman movie. I did like their whole kind of different interpretation of Aquaman, though. You know what I mean, of what he was kind of doing. I mean, Jason Momoa is going to be Jason Momoa. I mean, you know what I mean? He's going to just be Jason Momoa. He's going to be that guy. But it works, you know what I mean? It just ultimately just kind of works there. And maybe you're right. They're going to use the Flash movie to be there, you know, like, okay, this is when everything changes and we can start from scratch again and start to square one, and everything like that. So it'd be interesting to hear from James and Safran themselves of like what the plan is going to be, what's going to go out to give it. Because what they're looking for right now is some sense of direction, especially like when we talked about the Black Adam article in the Variety, the one from Variety is like, you know, Warner Brothers is kind of in crisis right now. They're in huge amounts of debt. They had to cut a lot of stuff because they had to clear the, you know, Zaslav, you know what I mean? He was kind of writing off a lot of stuff. That's why the Batgirl movie ended and everything like that, and other animated shows. So it'd be kind of interesting to see like what direction they go. In what they kind of keep. I would have preferred if they kept some of the stuff, like if they, like, I think Gal Gadot Wonder Woman works for them because that was successful. Aquaman Jason Momoa works for them. It was successful, so why not keep the stuff that just works and get rid of the stuff that doesn't? And people are good, I think, with going like, okay, that thing sucked, let's forget that and let's move on. Because I think like the Suicide Squad, I think most people are like, okay, the last one sucks, so we're okay with forgetting that movie even exists and then moving on to this one. And you were able to keep certain things like Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, which I thought was fantastic. I thought she's a really great Amanda Waller. So yeah. So I mean, you know, still, I mean, these are just, like I said, these are just mainly just rumors for right now, and stuff like that. See what Gunn and Safran come out and say about their whole big plan and what they want to do. Any final word on this at all?
Just make a good movie. Like, at the end of the day, that's all I'm asking for. Like, I don't care about fucking 10-year plans and stingers and Easter eggs and cameos and setups anymore. Like, I just don't care about any of that shit at this point. Like, just give me a good movie. That's the bare minimum of what I'm asking for. And if you can build more good stuff off of that good movie, great. But don't rush it. Don't rush it. Don't force it. Don't cram it down my throat every chance you get. Don't overplay it. Like, just let it happen as naturally as can be. And that's all I'm hoping for at this point.
Yeah. Well said.